This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to Teach Me Pokemon, the podcast. I'm your host, Corey, and along with my co-host, Jared, we're best friends, been playing Pokemon for a very long time.
Oh, hello.
Oh, what's up? I'm jealous that our listeners and viewers get to hear that intro all the time, and we really only got to start hearing it about a month ago.
I know it's a hype track. Like it gets me ready to go. Like I'm here for it. We're just bouncing and we're vibing and
We're vibing, baby.
and it's all
We're
good.
vibing.
Just like all of those folks down in Mexico this past weekend.
Man, there were some throwbacks. They were vibing down there. I'm a little jealous. Actually, Jared, how far is Merida? How do you say that? Merida,
Merida.
Mexico?
I don't know.
Merida to
You
Wake.
took a lot more Spanish courses than I did.
That's true. Oh, that'd have been a long drive for your boy Corey. 32 hours. This is looks like kind of close to Cancun or something. That you start 02, 03 drop, go hang out at the beach.
You at the beach, baby.
There we go. Well, I'm Corey. You're Jared. This is the Teach Me Pokemon podcast. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the places where you get your podcast. Jared, another shout out real quick. Look. Oh, our ticker. Oh, straight collections. Use the promo code ATEACH10. Get 10% off all your collectibles. Japanese cards, English cards, PSA cards, new sets, old ducks and new ducks. Goes a little something like this. You know, Yawns. Was it Yawns from Mighty Ducks?
That was called that little ditty was called "Feed the Ducks."
It's getting copyright infringement. All right, dude. We have a turbo episode today. We're calling this Teach Me Pokemon quick episode. We'll just talk about the tournament real fast. Then you dive into educational moment.
Yeah, we'll go.
Cool.
We'll go super quick. Azul,
All right.
Azul is back, Corey.
You know, Jared, this guy, he can claim he's like retired. I'm just a content creator. You know, he doesn't play in major tournaments anymore. And then he just shows up to an 1,100 person regionals and he wins the darn thing. No big deal. What are your thoughts on that? Just on Azul winning the tournament.
I think it makes a lot of sense. Like when you're content creating, you may not be in the heat of the moment, but when you have his pedigree and his track record, it's like riding a bicycle. Mm-hmm. So he hasn't left the mental game at all. It may have been a little awkward for him sitting down at that table, but he's one of the best players we've ever seen. And I don't want that to get lost in when somebody switches what they're doing or how often they're at a tournament or not. He is good.
Yeah.
And I was not surprised. It was kind of fun to see like one of the great players just come back, but it's like if I saw or if I see anybody, players from like our generation that are not playing as much anymore, they are no less a threat than they were in their best than they are now.
100%. I 100% agree with you. My two takes on that point, actually the first one, and they both have to do with Pokemon Live. But the last regionals, San Antonio, I want to say
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Well, no, it might have been Birmingham. What was the one with Alex Szymanski?
That was San Antonio, I believe.
Was that San Antonio?
There was Henry versus.
Yeah, Henry. Yeah.
And
I think he said, and I could be quoting this if I'm wrong. I saw this on Twitter, but it was like 3 of the top 4 all had 1,900 or plus ELO ratings on Live, which basically meant they're like in the top 10, 20 players on Pokemon Live. So that tells me translation, right? They're killing it on Live. They're very high on the ladder. And look, they also made top 8 at an in-person regionals with 2,500 plus players. So don't tell me Pokemon Live practicing doesn't translate to a live tournament. And then you take Azul, who he hasn't disclosed, at least I haven't heard it, on what his ELO rating is. But I tell you, the dude is playing and streaming 8 to 12 hours every day on live. He's infamous for not going to league cups and league challenges, although he did go to one recently. But he is primarily online. Now, all these guys have testing groups, Jared, and they have mechanisms and how they play together and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, they're getting more hours logged on live than they are anywhere else. And look at the results. It's there. So I don't know, man. I know it's not perfect system, Pokemon Live, but it clearly gives good results when you go to these live tournaments.
I think it does. It's like anything. At the highest level ELOs, you're seeing what you... But getting there can often be really frustrating because you're running into muck. And I don't mean the Pokemon muck. You're running into a lot of
I'm like, where's muck? You're
running into all of this craziness. And you've heard in the guests that we've had on the show in the past always talk about, like, hey, getting through those first 3 rounds can sometimes be harder than getting through those last 3 rounds because you just don't know what's coming. We're going to talk about this in the education moment. But yeah, I think when you're in that 16 to 1900 ELO, you care. You're there to win. You're not messing around. And the best decks are present there.
They are present there. And like you said, it's harder in the first 3 rounds than sometimes the last 3 rounds for some of these guys. And case in point, Azul starts the tournament off against Dragapult, Dusknoir, and loses. He loses his first round. So he starts this tournament 0-1 and then rips off 8 in a row, then loses to a Gardevoir to start off day 2, and then rips off, 7-8 for the win. So it is. I think a lot of these guys, round 1 is probably terrifying for players like Azul because it's like it could be anything right now.
Sure.
I liked if we look at his list, he was running Miraidon. Sorry, we didn't even say that off the top. He's running Miraidon, which I think was an interesting choice. I will say nothing jumps out to me crazy on this list. This is pretty standard with your Iron Hands, your Miraidons. The Magnemite, Magneton, one of is essential because the Magneton can kill itself, put 3 energy onto any Pokemon in play that he has. And Miraidon or Magneton's a 1 prizer, and this deck is all 2 prizers. So give your opponent an extra 1 prize. It really doesn't matter. I don't know. Nothing else really jumped out at me, Jared. The Pikachu's here for the area 0 proc to get your bench up to 8. I don't know.
I have some really strong thoughts about this.
On his deck,
not the construction of his deck, but I think this is a master decision to play this deck based on what is happening in the meta right now.
Really?
So I was in reviewing all of the data, I think let me make a case for you real quick. Can I make a case for you real quick?
Sure.
Let's go back. Let's look at our last big tournament, which was a massive tournament, San Antonio. Okay. Everyone knows the best players are looking at what's happening, not only in their online matches, but the previous tournament. So let's look at the statistics of what was there in day 2. Okay. So we saw Regidrago. We saw Charizard. We saw Lugia, which got a big bump right now that Reggie is playable. We see Gardevoir. We see Arts. So we're seeing these things in day 2 of San Antonio. Now flash forward and let's look at our day 2 statistics here. And what is super prevalent day 2 here? Dragapult, Gardevoir, and then everything else kind of flows out. There were 21 Miraidon decks in day 2. But the gist of it is this. Regidrago, 3 decks in day 2. What I think is being presented here is, and we were talking about this on the phone earlier this week, Badoo Rex. Regidrago. Badoo, that one little baby Pokemon wrecks it. So Azul knows that. So he's now got other decks in line. Regidrago wrecks, in my opinion, wrecks Miraidon. I don't think it's a fun matchup. So okay, now in Azul's mind, what is going to be played? Well, Dragapult is going to be played. Gardevoir's, in my mind, I think Azul knew that those were going to be the top 2 decks coming in here. And what plays well into both of those decks? Freaking Miraidon, man. Like, it just it's so fast against both of those decks. And it, minus the generators, it doesn't really care about Budew.
Yeah, no, you're right. And throw in third most played, Lugia. It would
don't want to see that.
It would steamroll. So you have, I'm adding up percentages here. 20 plus 18 plus 17 is what, Jared? You're fast at math.
Well, say it again. Say it again.
20% plus 18 plus 17. 55? 45?
I think he's
55.
55. Yes, 55.
55% of the field, Azul, once they flip over their card, he's like, oh, I'm good.
Right.
Like, and I will say, as the self-proclaimed best Gardevoir player on the planet Earth, besides Kaito, I'm second. I give it to Kaito. He's the best. He's the best because I run his deck. So I'm second. I don't fear much, but what I do fear is Iron Hands. And so, he had it. You're right. You're 100% right. So Azul reads the meta and goes with Miraidon because I don't think Azul has a track record of Miraidon.
Not that I know of.
I could be mistaken. I mean, look him up here. Like, at least just on Limitless page, like, there's no Miraidon on here. Well, okay, Charlotte last January, there was Miraidon. He ran, but he also got 169th on it, which is his worst placing, at least on this first page of Limitless. So probably not his cup of tea. But he knew what played in well. You're so smart. I think he also, and Jared, I didn't watch this match, but Azul goes through Rolando, who was the 8th place person, or he was 8th in top 8. Rolando, Azul and Rolando matched up in top 4, and Rolando is on a deck that is very near and dear to my heart, Cloth, Terapagos. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think I have ever, in all of my live performances playing Cloth, have I lost to Miraidon. You have to really have a bad start, or things have to go terribly wrong for you. You just have an advantage. I'm going to say that. And Azul wins the match. He gets through and then gets to finals. So,
well, it's like you said a second ago. What does Azul do in the first day of day 2? Loses to a Gardevoir. That matchup favors him. Like, that's what's so great about Pokemon is there's never a situation where, unless stall is maybe my one thing, where you just can't win, right? And even against stall, you have outs. It comes down to how. Yeah, like maybe because you're right. That Cloth is scary to Miraidon.
It is. I mean, when you can do that with the trade, and I understand, Iron Hands can trade back, hit the 120 onto the Cloth, and you're going to get the knockout. But to be able to keep pressuring that, it's hard for you to get multiple Iron Hands up. I will say you're right. If he ran into stall, Azul was running one switch card. And that was his only way out of any sort of stall deck. So he's probably glad he didn't hit any stall. I'm looking at his list right here, or his pathway. You know that I love the pathway. And round 9, he played Pablo Mesa's control deck, which I've been playing right now on live, and I do like, but it is not structured as a stall deck per se. Although Pablo should have been able to win that. Actually, how did Azul win that? I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know. Interesting. Maybe he just got to the Pidgeot. That's probably what happened.
It could have.
Boss on the Pidgeot.
It could have.
Well, cool. Well, really quick, any last points on Azul before we talk about second place real fast? Then we can move on.
No, I just congrats again to him. I think the people that read Miraidon for this tournament were dead on. And I look forward to talking in a minute about, after you talk about that, why I think we're back to an old format.
Ooh, I like it. Okay. Well, real quick, second place, finals, but it lost, was Gouging Fire. Mauricio on Gouging Fire. What surprised? And while you answer that question, I gotta plug in my laptop or I'm gonna die. Yeah,
yes. No, I I mean, let's look at how many people were running this deck in day 2. Like, was there there was one? There was one, Corey.
Yeah, one.
And that 700, that's got to feel great. You obviously want to come home with the dub, right? But I mean, this deck it hits big numbers. It can snipe. It's got a lot. Even throwing the Fluttermane in here, I love the Fluttermane edition just to throw in some disruption. But as long as Magma Basin is a card, Corey, Fire can find a way. It's Jurassic Park. Fire can find a way. We love to say that, but
we love to.
We love it. We love it so much. But this deck is constructed super well. You have the Entei so that you're able to use your Forest Steel Stone. Your Monkey Dory is getting your Gouging Fire to those numbers that you want. So for those 320 Pokemon, you may not get the knockout that turn if you don't have the double Monkey Dory set up, but it's set up for next turn. And that's what's important. So you can take those 4 prize card turns and you're not really worried about your own health. You're just going. Squawkabillion, Fezzidipian, Radiant. You're able to get around things with some jet energy. I love the secret box. I think this is the best I really realized when it came out, but so many players are putting it in their deck, a la Henry Chow. So really cool deck. Like, obviously things had to go right for this to work out, but congrats on making this work. This is a really cool deck.
Yeah, I think it's always fun. Like you said, Fire just always it feels like there's always potential for Fire to do really well. It always just kind of depends on the breakdown of how things are going to go. He had a killer tournament, talking about pathways, like really he had a round 3 loss to a deck that I don't know what it is because it's unknown here. But outside of that, he ran the table pretty much. He had a couple ties, one to Brent Tonneson. But he goes all the way and then loses in the finals. And I'll tell you, Jared, he goes round 9 against Miraidon, wins. Round 13, Caleb Gedimer, who is a teammate of Azul's, who probably was running the same 60 as Azul, and he wins. And then Leandro in the semifinals for Marcio, Miraidon, and he wins. So 3 Miraidons he takes down to get to Azul and then loses. So
Sheesh.
Brutal, but great win. We love a good, not calling it a rogue deck, but something that's different. You and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Rogue doesn't feel right to say this because this was like the first. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when Ancients came out, this deck was hot in Japan. Not this exact iteration, but Gouging Fire won that first big tournament in Japan when this came out. So yeah, it's just under the radar is what I would call it.
Well, and arguably, I would think Seida's is probably one of the most broken supporters in Pokemon. And so you can't run it in every deck. That's how good it is. But the ones that you can run it in, any ancient type decks, they're worth, like, once you get a good structure to it, they'll probably do well. And so, I don't know. That just showed up here. And kudos. I'll say shout out to Aiden Coos, friend of the podcast. He 5th place here in the tournament. He actually, Jared was rolling in. He was the number 1 seed. So, Aiden, we had high hopes for you, bud, but it's okay. You did really well. So cool. What were your thoughts? I want to segue now into your, what did you mean by we're into the old format?
Well, there's Pokemon is always changing and never changing. And this isn't even my education moment, but what you saw in this shift with this Badoo is the entrenched best deck just rendered useless. If early in turns 1, 2, and 3, Regidrago cannot play item cards, there are bigger, badder decks that need to buy time to win. That's what these 2 decks are. Gardevoir does that. Dragapult loves that. They're there for it late game. It's not scared. So what we're seeing now is we're kind of going back to, okay, maybe Regidrago can find some way, but right now it's, do you want to run something quick that threatens these late game turn 5, 6, 7 turn decks? And I think that's going to be the interesting question rolling into is how do you respond to this? Like, what is the answer now that there's no question about what the best decks are, but how do you respond with this Badoo just shaking up everything? Because we also saw Palkia fall off super hard tournament to tournament as well. Yeah. Definitely affected by the Badoo. So that's what I'm looking at now is like we're kind of back to a like speed deck versus setup late deck because Badoo has thrown the meta into such confusion.
Yeah, I mean, if Badoo buys your opponent 3 or 4 turns and because they just saw you out, you're out.
You're done.
Yeah, it's not going to work. You got to be able to get on top of it. And there are creative Pokemon to do that. Even Gardevoir, I mean, Screamtail does 30. You know, I mean, there's some interesting ways to knock out the Badoo. But you're right. If you just let them just hit you, item lock, you're kind of in a very bad way. But I think speed decks both counter a Badoo well, but then it puts pressure on these Dusknoir decks because in my opinion, one of the best ways to counter a Dusknoir deck is to just get on top of them quick, so that they have to really gauge if they're going to do those curse moves and knock itself out, because then those prize cards start to add up for your opponent when they get to dictate the game. They're almost unbeatable. Anything with the Dusknoir variant, we've seen that with Palkia, we've seen that with Dragapult. But what does Badoo do? Slows that stuff down because you can't rare candy into it. So, but you're right. I think you're right, Jared. We might be back to a little speed something, and with old boy Zoroark coming here pretty soon.
Ooh.
He loves a good speed. I mean, that's Zoroark. Yeah. So I don't know, man. But you're right. I like your take on that. I'm with you. Not my thing. I should just run a good speed deck. I guess Cloth Terapagos is kind of a speed because I'm going for the cheese knockout kill turn 1.
Oh, for sure.
So maybe I do run one. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, and it had some level of success in the tournament as well. It's just really interesting. I'm talking about the top of the top, the best of the best decks. Like clearly Dragapult or Badoo, so it could buy some time against Regidrago and wasn't it the most played day 2 deck? Like that deck is just stupid good, and it's been waiting for something to buy it some time.
What deck? Oh, Dragapult?
Dragapult. Yes.
Oh, Dragapult. Yeah.
Dragapult Dusknoir is just, I remember when you and I first saw it and we were like, oh, like this is mean.
Yeah. I may have been on record calling it a perfect deck. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know you were leading me to the water. I guess I'll drink it. But I might have said it. But that's what makes Pablo's control deck. I know he finished like 29th. Where did Pablo finish here? Yeah, 28th. His control deck. But that Black Kyurem, when you can just paralyze cycle the Dragapults, nothing has brought me greater joy in the last few days of playing that deck against those Dragapults, because it's just like pass. I mean, it's great. But
there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do. But anyway, yeah, Dragapult, incredible. But I do think the drop off. You mentioned Regidrago had 3 in day 2, right? Did you say how many were in day 2 in San Antonio? Did you see that number?
I mean,
I haven't pulled up.
What is it?
53. It went from 53 to 3. Now,
because of one Pokemon.
Now, I hear you listening to us screaming in your car. Well, the tournament was half the size. I hear that. I understand. But it shouldn't have dropped off by 97%. I mean, come on now. So crazy. But anyway, that was my last take. But you're right. Speed decks.
There is like Badoo killed off the mid-range item dependent deck. Yeah. Like it just did. And you have to evolve. And that's why I thought Azul did so great. He didn't just take the next step, which is, Dragapult Gardevoir. He was like, I'm going to take the next step after that and make a guess here. And clearly, and it worked. It was so good.
So do you think, it says the rotation happens, it goes into effect April 11th?
It's Atlanta.
But is Atlanta the first tournament where it'll be the new rotation of cards?
It's both at the same time. It will be a new set and the rotation will take place at the same tournament in Atlanta.
Whoever wins that tournament probably would go down. Let's say they would have won no other tournament. Like, let's say they don't get to play very much because of kid commitments and life. But let's say they go and win that tournament. That would actually be propped up. I think I don't know who I'm talking to about that, but that would be interesting. So.
Oh my gosh.
Well, Jared, I think my prediction, I know we're not talking predictions, but because Pokemon is a game of cycles here, and now Azul is now going to get everyone running Miraidon again, I would bet Regidrago probably wins the Puerto Rican special event on February 15th. That's this weekend. My prediction is that Regidrago wins the Puerto Rican special event. Yeah, this Puerto Rican special event. So
fair.
Okay, before we do education moment, we have a ginormous Champions League coming up in Fukuoka. How do you say that, Jared?
I do not know.
You traveled to Japan.
I did travel to Japan. I tried my best with my basic words. City pronunciation not in the bag.
Not in there. I think this is a record, and again, this is all Twitter, but this is the most non-Japanese players that are going to be in this tournament.
It's great.
Like your our boy, man, I'm blanking.
Brent?
No, he was on our show, and I'm totally blanking. Lugia main, Jared. Raul, he's on his way. He's flying.
Oh, he's in.
So,
good for him.
That'll be fun. What do you think the odds are that a non-Japanese citizen takes down the tournament, the win?
25%. 25%.
Wow. I was gonna say like 4. I think it's low. And it's not it's not because of skill.
Players, man. I think I wonder if because I think we tend to immortalize Japanese players. It's like whoa. But I think they got to be afraid when a Raul rolls into your tournament. Like, I understand it's best of ones, anything can happen for a lot of it. You got to throw some respect on that name, man. Like, that's a really good player.
And I think they do. I don't think Japanese players go in arrogant, but I just think I'm more just saying structure of the tournament, like best of ones. I don't know. I think someone like Raul could just get unlucky for 2 rounds and then you're done. So I don't know, but I think Kaito on Gardevoir, too good. He takes it down. He wins the darn thing. All right, Jared, educate us. I need to be educated.
Corey, you have to predict the unpredictable to be a good Pokemon player. Yeah. You have to. You have to predict the unpredictable. And what we are talking about is we love predictability on this show. We love to dissect it. We love to get into the meta. We love to talk about this and that and all of this stuff, but you just can't plan for every single situation. And we talked about having an awareness for most of it, but the best players are also poised and ready for something that they haven't practiced. Right? Okay. And this is where Pokemon is like jazz, man, where you just gotta skidoo-bap-boo. Like you didn't know it was coming. You've got to be ready, but you can't practice that. And we were talking earlier in the show about how those first 3 rounds for a lot of players are scary because there's people like me that love to throw these rogue things together, and there is no deck that just beats everything. It doesn't exist. It's never really existed. We've had some close calls, right? Yeah. Pokemon creators, we've had some close calls. But just think about those, especially round 1 and before, and you're like, really? Like, I'm going to lose to this. And I've prepared for the other 90% of the meta.
Yes.
Right.
I think you're so right. You're so right. Can I just give an example of this?
Please,
kind of
please.
What you're saying. So I'm playing Gardevoir on live, right? And it starts to, climbing. I'm like at 1730 right now. To the point where I won't take phone calls. If my wife needs help, I'm like pooping still. Like I just, it's getting to the point where I can't drop these games. And so it's a Gardevoir mirror, which I always like get up for because again, I don't ever want to lose those. And it got to a point where I was behind. So my jazz play, was the last thing I had was Mawile. That's all I had. They had dropped Manaphy, which is smart, so you can't snipe with the Scream Tail. But then it's like, well, I'm just going to keep yanking out this Manaphy. Well, they had discarded one Professor Turo already earlier in the game. So they Turo the Manaphy up. They play their second Turo, which I'm like, that's it. Like, so the Monkey Dories were in play. So it was going to be me yanking out their Monkey Dory and hitting it. And then what it turns into is just I'm moving damage counters, they're moving. But they had like 2 cards left in deck. So I was like, I think I can outlast this and win. They next turn third Turo.
Wow.
And I was like, it wasn't, wow, good play. It was, they did that wrong. Like, they built that wrong. I was so adamant that, like, they messed up, even though they won the match and I was just salty. But, like, you're supposed to really run just one Turo, really. Henry ran 2 at San Antonio. So then everyone and their mom runs 2. Nobody runs 3. That's a mistake. I should have won. And that's, like, unlucky. Like, you can't plan for that. Like, those are the things, because you almost get an advantage by knowing what the pros are playing, because you're like, you dictate your game. That's how you play Jazz a little bit better, because I know, there's only one switch card in this Dragapult deck. There's only one. So I just got to get through the one switch. And then when they play 2, I'm like upset. Like it's their fault. And that's not true, but it's how it feels sometimes. And so.
Oh, for sure. And that's what makes Pokemon so unique compared to so many other things is, you and I, we've played poker in our days, some of us more than some of us more than others. But like in a situation like that, what can happen is much more limited than what can happen in a TCG with thousands of cards that are available to us in the meta. And you just can't. So what I think is healthy for people, and this is what I've seen some of the pros do, is like, you got to run some mess too. Like, you got to run things, try things, experiment with things. The bigger that your library is in your head for what is possible, you're just going to be a better player. Was there any way for you to predict a third Turo? No. But now that's in your head. And that's going to help you predict, because one of your biggest things that I love that I think you need to do some education moments on is you are one of the best player not playing the cards. You read body language. You have these intangible things that are going on versus the player versus necessarily what's just sitting right here. And across the table, you may have been able to read that there was something else coming, but online you can't do that. Like, well, that's a different education moment for a different time. But that's what I'm saying is like, is now that you've seen a Gardevoir run 3 Turos, that's in the back of your mind as, okay, this is a potential option now.
Yeah, because those are win cons in Gardevoir with Mawile in some of these decks, is we're kind of reverting back to not as many ways to escape out of being locked down. And so it's like, well, actually, this is a very real play. A Lugia drops 3 jet energies. I'm going to do? I'm going to start yanking out the Archeopsis because they're just going to run out of energy at some point. And it becomes a Guardy stall deck. But you only can do that if you feel confident about what cards they have to get out, and then you overcompensate for it. And so, but what's nice about Jet Energy is like, well, they can't run 5, so they have 4. But 4 Turos would be way overkill. But anyway, I like your point. You plan, you prepare, but sometimes it just comes down to jazz. And the best jazz artists are ones that understand their instruments the best, and they can riff, and they don't necessarily have to read music. They don't even really do that in jazz. So incredible. I love your point. You always educate me.
I try. I'll leave you with a fun chess story.
Oh.
So we all know the greatest chess player of our day.
Yeah.
Magnuson.
Yep.
Magnuson. Well, he it was like, I believe it was like the 2019 championship, and he was up against the premier. I believe he was from India. I forget his name off the top of my head, but the Indian player was favored because of a computer simulation that he was running and running and running. And this guy knew statistically in every situation what the best move was. Like it was data driven. Like this guy is running what the computers most closely do that consistently defeat you. Magnus knew a lot of those things too, and he made statistically wrong moves and ended up winning.
Jeez. Because it threw off the other guy? Wow. Because he was like overconfident, or he just didn't know?
It should have been a match of what was statistically the best move. And
Sure.
when this other great player is not making the right moves,
Yeah.
it created, and this wasn't speed chess either. This is long form chess. This game could go on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. But I bring all that up to say, like, unpredictability won. The ability to play jazz and do that, it won the match. You've seen this sometimes. Some of the great Pokemon moments are even the casters didn't see the out that the player was working for. They were playing jazz, man. Even though they were limited in what their scope was, they're doing it. So
it reminds me of, I think it was the 2008 Fiesta Bowl. I might have the year wrong. Boise State, Oklahoma. And Boise State whipping out the Statue of Liberty and
hook and ladder.
Hook and ladder. Yeah, it's like, how do you take down a juggernaut? Mix it up a little bit, throw some unpredictability. So,
yep, absolutely. And that's where we in the Rogue community go wrong, is we live in the world. We want to throw unpredictability at you with every single thing, and it's not consistent. So don't hear me preaching that you need to go, this is a route of living. This is a route of adaptability in the midst of, like you said, a prepared situation.
Brilliant. That's what makes you the best. I love it. I love it. You are unpredictable, my friend. That's good. All right. For Corey and Jared, we'll catch you later.
You can find us at roguemedianetwork.com. Teach Me Pokemon Podcast. Come and dive with us.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.